Welcome to Health and Wealthness, where we offer integrated solutions for personal and financial retirement planning for medical professionals. I'm your host, Michael Swartz. All right, Jennifer, well, welcome back to the third of a three-part series on your retirement transition and your retirement journey.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. And so we've talked about kind of your career up to this point, retiring professionally, what some of that closure and milestones look like, and obviously the exclamation point you'll put on your career. And so now I want to make it a little bit more personal, and really as much as you're willing to share. And so you and I have coached on this. We both come from that physician development coaching background, and I think that's what's going to make you such a valuable guest. And what's made you a valuable guest is you've kind of got the peek behind the curtain, not just in your life,
hmm
but
Yeah.
coaching with several other retiring and retired
Yeah.
physicians. And you mentioned last conversation that whirlwind and spiral of doing too many things at once, that loss, the social connections, the financial stress of putting children through college. And so for you personally, we'll start here today. What are the three values that are kind of guiding your retiring and retirement journey?
Mm. Okay, so as I transition into retirement, the three values that I think that are most important to me is growth, um, connection. I'm worried about losing connection, and growth, connection, and maybe I
And
would
you,
say, because I've done a lot of work on my core values, but when it relates specifically to retirement, they're a little bit different than probably what my um, day-to-day core values are. Growth, connection, and I would say creativity. I really need to continue a creative um, endeavor of some kind.
so the not letting your hands go idle,
Yeah,
so to speak.
yeah.
And I'm really curious as you apply those three values of growth and connection, and then that creativity piece. How is that going to help you measure your success as you're retiring and into retirement?
Yeah, I try to measure my success based on how I'm feeling more than the goals that I'm hitting. And I will set a goal and an intention and then sort of set it and forget it
Hmm.
because that's where I feel that I'm going today on day one. And then I start moving and then I check in to see how am I doing on this? I've been working hard on letting go of goals and changing my goals if they don't feel like they're serving me anymore.
Is that okay?
It's so hard, and it is. It's so hard to let go. I mean, especially for doctors who we are so goal driven. And I'll tell you one thing that really helped me was I read the book. Did you ever read the book Quit?
That one I have not. Let's
Annie
let's talk
Duke.
about it.
Annie Duke, I think is her name. And she really helped me change my mindset around quitting when quitting is so like you don't give up, you don't give up, you don't give up. And there is a place for don't give up, don't give up. But you have to understand your why. Why am I going towards that goal? Is it just because I set the goal and I need to reach it? Or is it because that's what I still want to be doing? Um, and it's really important to quit when the reason when it's the right reason.
Well, I think I'm asking the question again that everyone's probably thinking out there, especially when we think of our audience as these, physicians' late stage career. Is that okay to quit? And what has quitting, or at least changing goals and being okay with kind of, we call it the sunk cost fallacy. Once you're in it,
Yeah,
you're still pursuing something that's really not valuable to
right.
pursue, but you're stuck with it and you think you have to stay committed. How
But
is
at what
how is letting some of
cost?
that go?
At
How,
what
how has that
cost,
helped you?
right?
Yeah.
How it has so lightened. I cannot tell you that practicing what are you going to stop doing is so
Yep.
much more important than what are you going to start doing because it just creates space.
Yeah.
You can't keep piling on and adding on and adding on. It gets very heavy. Um, yeah.
And so I guess you can imagine, a hiker, and the metaphor is hikers along their path, they see a rock, it's beautiful, they put it in their backpack, another rock, it's beautiful. A larger rock, a larger project goes in the backpack. And when's the last time you've just taken that off your back on your
Yeah.
journey and done an inventory of what's still serving you in there and what are you
Right.
carrying with you that isn't? and
Yes.
leaving a pile of rocks on the journey to just say they were part of that phase, but that levity, that clarity to have to be
Yes.
carrying a lighter pack. And what has that experience like been for you?
It is so hard quitting things and letting things go. Um, but it's either it's similar to any difficult habit change. It's either the pain up front or the pain later. Right? I mean, do I eat the
Yep.
chocolate cake now and enjoy it and then regret it later? It's really the same thing. Do I say no to this particular activity so that I can have my space later, or do I just do it because it's and then be stressed and overwhelmed and miserable later? And um, that's your choice.
Yeah, and you're forecasting such a tremendous issue because with several of the retired physicians that I've spoken with, once you retire from practice and you are a retired doctor, people will know. And when they know that a doctor has all this free time, allegedly in retirement, it's
Yeah.
asks for boards, it's asked for non-for-profits, it's asked
Yes.
for commitments, whether it's Rotary, etc. And really, one of the pieces of advice in the book is taking 6 months in retirement to just say no or not
Yes.
now to all those invitations because you're still trying to unload your bag. Why put more in?
Yeah. That is part of the change process to me. I think you've got to create that space, that exploring. I think about going into the metaphors. Like it's right now, we're approaching winter. I don't know when this is going to air, but it's winter right now, and the trees are in dormant mode. Right? You look at
Hmm.
and they're still growing and nurture. Doing whatever. I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing something in the roots.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
necessary part of the process, that dormant phase. And I think it's important for us, and we don't tend to, as humans, value that quiet dormant phase. We rush right into the next thing. And I've been trying to create space for that even before I get into retirement now, while I'm what I call it my pre-retirement.
yeah.
I work with doctors who are in pre-retirement, their late career but not quite ready to go. Kind of the last 5 or 6 years. What's their last act? I have this coaching program called Designing Act Two just for you. And
Awesome.
we kind of like, what do you want to do? What's your last hurrah? What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to do? And then, and then plan for that, that final phase.
Well, I mean, it sounds tremendously valuable. And one thing that we talked about too in that pre-retirement stage is the relationships. You mentioned the connection. And I'll do a
Hmm.
little bit of forecasting here. In Life After Medicine, it's an Alan Roadberg book. It's interactive. And one of the things that he talks about is while working, physicians think that financial concerns, as we've talked about, are the number one concern. Plan your
Yeah.
finances. And then once they get into retirement, it's actually the psychological and social losses that become the number one concern, but haven't
Yes.
been planned for.
Hmm.
And so, who are the relationships that you're leaning on in
Yeah.
your transition into
Yeah,
retirement?
I'm really nervous about that actually, and need to do some rebuilding of some. I have amazing friends from through life, but really most of my time is at work,
Mhm.
and my relationships are at work. And of course, I have my amazing husband and my kids, but as my kids get older, they're going to have their own lives, and I can only insert myself so much.
That's a dance. That's a dance.
Yes. So, I'm going to have to proactively reconnect with some of my friends and also build new friends and I'm going to want to do new things in my community and build connection in my community. And yeah, but it's going to take concerted effort and thinking.
Yeah, and that intentionality piece and the forecasting even now, just looking ahead and really thinking about, yeah, when I do leave, I won't have this team, I won't have my MA or my APC team or right,
Hmm.
your patients are no longer your patients. And
Yeah.
one big piece that we touch on that I think every physician needs to know, so I'll probably say it in every single podcast, you get cut off from the healthcare system at midnight on the day that you retire. Your email and every contact goes away.
Yeah.
And if you don't have personal email addresses of colleagues or cell phone numbers, outside of HIPAA, if your patients are friends outside of your career,
Yeah.
you need to have that contact information ahead of time. You can't go back
Wow.
into the library and pull a book off the shelf and find that information. It's not,
Wow.
it's not accessible to
That's
you.
on a very practical level and something I actually hadn't thought about, but you're so right.
And so it's having those relationships that you've
Yeah.
built to carry through, to pull that thread through the end of the career and meaningful.
Yeah. But then I also wonder, what is my relationship with the people who I consider my friends at work? Are they truly my friends, or are we friends because of our work? So I don't know. That also scares me.
Yeah, it's a bit of a reality check, isn't it? An inventory
Yeah.
um, by nature.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And on this last piece, then, before we transition into your ideal retirement and close our conversation here, what have you learned from your career and your retirement journey that you think other physicians would benefit from knowing?
I think what I've learned from my own experience and from watching some of my colleagues go through this, that it's just so important to be intentional. This seems to be our word of the day, right? And plan and think about it in advance. It's it it is such a devastation to me when I see people just quit and get depressed because there's
Yes.
nothing. And there is, of course, going to be maybe, I guess, after you retire, there's like this honeymoon period and then the
Yeah.
depression, and there are all these phases you go through. But there's so much you can do to mitigate the risk of falling into a funk.
Yeah. And I guess to just touch on that, there was Dr. Riley Moynihan was a PhD who did a TED talk on that topic. And it follows the trajectory of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And I'm not sure if you've seen that model. But essentially, Dr. Moynihan says there's four stages of retirement. There's the honeymoon phase, then that unforeseen loss and lost. And really, it takes you, the honeymoon phase is a spike, followed by this drop in confidence or self-confidence. And that unforeseen loss and loss can accumulate and pulls you into what's called the valley of despair. And
Hmm.
really, that can take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. And so you mentioned folks retire, the honeymoon phase is over in 3 months or 6 months or 12 months.
Yeah.
And then the real work needs to get started. And you mentioned it. The only way to get through that is to A, be prepared, kind of have this retirement intention statement that pulls you through it, that belief, that hope for something bigger than yourself to keep you moving forward.
Hmm.
And then there's trial and error on the climb, right? You've mentioned
Yeah.
doing something that sounds right, but then checking in along the way. And that's up the slope of enlightenment. And then there's
Yeah.
this second spike on the far right side of the graph that really talks about the plateau of sustainability where the reward sits in retirement.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's really what we're working for is getting through the positive period of the
Yeah.
vacation phase, being prepared for that turbulent phase where, again, those four Ds come up: divorce, depression, dependency, and potentially death, where,
Oh,
physicians can get
yeah.
trapped in that valley and your heart goes out to them. And so that's
Yeah.
really where we're coming from to say, you know, be brave, follow the inner voice, be intentional, and reclaim your agency so
Yeah.
that you're the author of that transition and that trajectory into retirement.
Yeah. And I appreciate you talking about this and sort of looking under the hood of it, because it's sort of, as a woman also in menopause, this is another topic that's not talked about, and there's been a lot more conversation around it and the retirement and these things, old people being kind of pushed aside, and it's really inspiring to see so much conversation around these stages of life, and in other cultures where being old is really being wise and being contributing and are valued. That's how I want to redefine retirement.
Well, and yeah, for you in coaching, you mentioned it, but you're doing it, right? You're creating this transition that comes with the pre-retirement coaching
Yeah,
for physicians to help ease the burden of this transition. So you're right out there, you're in the arena
yeah.
doing the work and solving the problem live. This is something we talk on a lot deeper in the book, but in Health and Wealthness, we talk about retirement, and the self-funded retirement is a relatively new concept. Even one or two generations ago, there might be pensions, or you
Mm,
mentioned,
yeah,
Great Depression and grandparents. And so really having this much personal wealth is a pretty new concept.
yeah.
And the financial retirement problem is something that we've been conditioned to solve, right? Do I have enough money? You actually said that
Right.
exact phrase. And we know to ask that question, but I think there's a deeper question there that really comes down to the personal journey as well. And
Hmm.
really bringing this to light and saying, nobody really knows how to retire well yet. We're all just
Right.
learning as we go. How can we come together to start creating an
Yeah.
inspiration, a team that really works through all the phases of retirement to get to that sage
Yeah.
side of things?
Yeah. Your comments make me realize that I think my um, core value that really is going to have to bring me into retirement is more meaning or purpose, right? I
Yeah.
have to figure out redefine what that is. And I actually think that I will do some of the things I'm currently doing, but in a charitable, a board or yeah, in to have some. I want to. You asked what my ideal retirement kind of
Yeah.
day or whatever is like, but I want to be able to just wake up when I wake up. No alarm clock, wake up and then have some time first thing in the morning for self-care. And I want to eat healthy and focus on my own well-being and exercise and all those things. And then I want meaningful work, regardless of whether there's money or not attached to it. I want meaningful contribution in some way to serve society and humanity, my community, something, somehow.
Yeah. And you mentioned kind of carrying those skills and behaviors, but maybe repurposed in a new role, right? You've got a
Yes,
career's worth of experience and expertise.
right.
And the role of being a physician and patient care is going to be going away. But what's a new role that we can
Hmm.
repurpose
Yeah,
in retirement?
exactly.
Absolutely. And the way to do that, as you mentioned, is the awareness and the planning. And so I think it's great to just call out that Eisenhower quote, the plans are useless, but planning is indispensable, where it's not
Yeah,
necessarily following the plan that's
right.
valuable, but it's
It's
having
to
just that
get there.
backdrop
Yeah,
and framework.
yeah. That's like the goal. Let go of the goal. Set it and
Exactly.
forget it.
Yeah. And then check in from time to time and see how it's
Right.
going. Yeah. Bring that
Exactly.
awareness that you mentioned having that time for self-care too, whether it's a daily basis or a quarterly basis, checking
Hmm.
in along the way. How are we doing? What needs to
Yeah.
be updated and what can we let go? And I think that's a big permission piece too, is what can
Yeah.
we say no to?
Yes.
Not just what are you retiring to, but what are you retiring from that
Yep.
you will never ever do ever again because you just
Yes.
don't get a lot of joy out of it.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, on that note, Jennifer, I just want to thank you for kind of talking through that retirement journey, the retiring, the day you retire, and retirement. And if I could, I would just love to maybe throw one thing back from our pre-interview questionnaire. You mentioned I want to have meaningful contribution in retirement and focus on my own health, well-being, and prioritizing that healthy cooking, hiking, and yoga, etc.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
what does well-being for physicians mean to you? Reminding everyone that this is coming from a
Yes.
chief wellness officer.
Yes. Yes, well-being to me is it's not just about the absence of illness or the absence of being sick. It's about the presence of being in tune with your mind, body, and soul so that you are as set as possible to navigate the choppy waters of life. Basically, it's tuning yourself up to be as healthy. Because even in retirement, there's going to be difficult situations. Maybe not as difficult as being in the hospital, but there's going to be difficult situations. You're going to start losing your spouses and your friends, right? I can only imagine how stressful that's going to be, but that is what well-being is.
Yeah, and
Not avoiding stress, but tuning yourself up so that you are in the best shape possible to navigate it.
yeah, and I would say revitalizing that internal compass and having core values and identity and a purpose
Yeah.
to say, here's who I am, so that when the winds of life come and the storms are brewing, I've got my anchor inside of me,
Yeah.
beyond spirituality in just the self.
Yes.
That's what well-being is for you, not just the absence of sickness, but being prepared and having that
Yep.
healthy in preparation for what's to come.
Yes. When I say spirit, I mean connection to purpose. That's what I mean
Wonderful.
yes. Same.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, for all three conversations. I think you've really brought a lot of really meaningful issues to light here for the physicians that are in any phase of their retirement journey. And so, for your candor, for your honesty, and really just your openness, not only intellectually in how you explore these problems, but with your heart as well. Thank you.
Oh, I thank you. I can't thank you enough. This was a true pleasure, Michael.
All right. Well, thank you, Jennifer.
All right.
That concludes our interview with Dr. Jennifer Shaer, a Chief Wellness Officer and Pediatric Specialist at Allied Physicians Group. If you would like to learn more about her coaching practice, you can find her at shaercoaching.com. That's www.shaercoaching.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Health and Wealthness. As always, I'm your host, Michael Swartz, certified financial planner and healthcare peer coaching practitioner. If you're looking for more help or additional resources on your retirement journey, please visit healthwealthness.com or send an email to hello@healthwealthness.com. We'll see you in the next episode.